Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited. I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time, and those who will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. This is going to be a truncated call. We are a week out from the election. There are a lot of things going on. I've probably got 50 or 60 phone calls, texts, and emails to respond to today. I've already been on 2 conference calls. I have at least 2 more scheduled after this call. One of them's probably already begun. There's just a lot going on. These calls are all over the planet. Some are foreign, some are domestic. But it's all got to do either directly or indirectly with the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. I'm going to move quickly through the information that I do have. For those of you that are calling in for the first time, I suggest that you not only listen to the remarks I have for today, but to go back to our call of 10/21, the 21st of October. It has some additional information with regard to the situation in Iraq, but it also has all of the information regarding the program we've put in place to assist you, and it's got an informative Q&A along with it. So I'll dispense with the disclaimer today. We're still looking at a window for the reinstitution of the dinar in January of 2020. The primary problem as it exists today in Iraq has to do with the payment of salaries. Of course, they've got an economic crunch. Their economy is slowed substantially due to the very low oil prices and, of course, the situation that they have with COVID. The options with regard to the payment of their salaries are pretty much the same. They can utilize their U.S. dollar reserves, but they are dwindling to a dangerous level, and they probably don't want to do that. They could borrow additional funds, but the Parliament has not passed the new borrowing law. However, one of the reasons that law is not passed is they're trying to tweak it to make it a little bit more easy for the Finance Committee to execute some additional loans, although that's probably not a good idea long term. The reinstitution of their currency cannot occur right now. They have not done their education program. They've not completed the project to delete the zeros. They've not released the coinage and the lower denoms from the 8 regional banks, although they are scheduled to get this done by January of 2020. What they're probably going to do for the time being is allow the currency auctions to continue, even though that they know that there's theft involved in those auctions. But that may be their only plausible funding mechanism for salaries for the next 2 to 3 months. Now, there is some good news, and it's this. The white paper that was issued by the Finance Committee was well received in Europe and a lot of the industrialized nations. They felt that the package was realistically constructed in terms of reforms, particularly since it did include the release publicly of the corrupt files, meaning that they're finally dealing with the corruption in their own country. I had to laugh when I was reviewing this because the first thing I thought was, well, it sounds a lot like what's going on in this country, i.e. the release of information regarding corruption in our own government. Now, there is a possible solution for the payment of salaries, and that's one of the calls that I hope to be on later today. And it has to do with the fact that the United States sanctions against Iraq include the freezing of funds the sanctions against Iran include the freezing of Iranian funds in Iraqi banks. And the United States is considering allowing those funds to be utilized as restitution to Iraq to repay them for the theft of the currency options that Iran has been pilfering Iran has been pilfering Iraq. I'm sorry for getting confused here, but I got so many things going on. Iran has been pilfering funds from Iraq for years, and the United States, vis-a-vis their sanctions against Iran, are going to utilize the Iranian funds that are frozen in Iraq as restitution to Iraq for the funds that Iran has been pilfering. So that would be the funding mechanism, or at least one of the funding mechanisms for the payment of their salaries and to help them get out of this short-term severe deficit problem they have in economic downturn. So again, this is all good news. We're still moving to the glide path of January of 2021. I see nothing on the horizon that should hold that off, and all of the things that are happening are assisting, even though they may be indirectly involved in moving in the right direction. So again, I suggest that our newer callers go to our call of 10/21, October 21st. Listen to what we've put out there. Again, it also has the information about the program we put in place to assist you, and does have an informative a Q&A in there as well. I'm sorry for the truncation of this call, but there's just so much that has to be done, and I have to get into these calls. These calls are not recorded calls, so if you do not participate in the call, you lose the information. Again, thanks so much for listening to the call. We will be back next Wednesday. Certainly if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, and given the fact that we have the ongoing election and what's going on in Iraq, more than ever before, there's a distinct possibility that we may have to have an emergency call before next Wednesday. But if that's not the case, we will be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks very much for taking the time to listen, everyone, and have a great week.